You know, when it comes to car care, the thing that you do the absolute most is washing. Setting it up in a way where there's no friction every time you want to use it is extremely important. This video that we're going to do today is all about getting your setup so that it is seamless to use, so that every time you want to go and clean anything, the amount of setup time is reduced to almost nothing. So our Pro pressure washer is without a doubt my favorite, and before you mount it in your garage, you need to think about a few things. Most garages, you have a water source just out in front of your garage. Almost every house has that. Now, we've done a ton of renovations and remodels in our life. So relocating things to me is absolutely a no-brainer. However, to you, if you're like, oh, what do you mean relocate? I mean go into the crawl space and tap off of an existing exterior mounted hose bib and create, like Mike did, an interior hose bib, okay? By doing that, that gives you the ability to have the hose not running from the inside of your house, the inside of your garage, to an outside water source. You wanna make sure and keep everything together so that you don't have to unplug, unscrew, rescrew, attach, deattach. You wanna make sure and keep a couple things in mind. One, bring the water into an area that's not directly over any electrical outlet. You can see that Mike set his on an opposite wall from where he's got the outlet to make sure that it's also lower than the outlet. Again, anything that could possibly happen with splashing won't get us in trouble. Now we're gonna say, okay, what's going on behind the wall? In other words, where are my studs? We've already went ahead and found our studs, okay? We know exactly how far apart they are. And on the back of the pressure washer, we have holes on the back at multiple locations so that depending on where your studs are, you'll be able to find two and make sure and get the right hardware to get those things mounted so that you've got a very sturdy mount. This pressure washer is heavy. It's not quite 100 pounds, but it's heavy. You wanna make sure and not use drywall anchors to get your pressure washer hung up, okay? So now it's time to identify the layout, how we want things to set on the wall to be as functional as possible and out of the way. So check this out. First of all, if you have a wall that's like this diagonally facing your driveway, that's where you want your reel. I would say that a very small percentage of you out there will have that. So plan B, the next best location will be on the wall that is right here, which would be perpendicular to your garage door, okay? That is your next best because you can still pull the reel, you can pull the hose right off that reel and out to your driveway. If you have no other option but to mount on the wall that is parallel to your garage door, well, in that case, you're just gonna be pulling your hose out a little bit, getting a bunch on the ground, and then pulling it outside. When it comes to how high you want your pressure washer, I wanna be able to easily push this on and off button right here, okay? If I can easily punch the on or off button, that's how high I want it. I also want to be able to put other things underneath it. Maybe my detail cart, my buckets, maybe one of my DI tanks. Pressure washer, this wall is sort of the no-brainer. If we mounted it here, it'd have to go down too low. We could mount it up above there, but that's right above a sub panel. You don't want to mount it above one of your electrical panels. Now, mounting it next to one, no problem, okay? We can definitely do that. So here we are, we've got 16 inches already taped off on the wall, and then we're just gonna run a hose right here across the wall over to where we're gonna have the reel mounts. Let's say neither the reel nor the pressure washer has mounts that are spot on with your studs, with the studs that are in your garage. Well, then you mount it to a 2x4, put two 2x4s on either side, and then you mount the 2x4s to the studs, okay, across, and that'll give you the ability to mount it just about anywhere. So in your garage, you might have the ultimate drawer set up with every lag bolt and every size. I don't. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna look through Mike's drawers. I'm finding some things, but not everything I need. Guess what? Mike might not have in stock all of the lag bolts that we need. How about we go to the hardware store right now, get the stuff we need, grab ourselves some lag bolts, some washers, and we might even grab some different hose just to make sure that we have exactly the perfect amount of hose to go from the pressure washer to the reel. Okay. Welcome to McGuckins. So to mount the pressure washer to the wall, we went with a 3/8 by 3-inch lag bolt, and I went with black. To mount the reel, we went with a 1/4 inch by 4-inch lag bolts. Now these also, we were able to secure black washers to go along with them. To make sure that the hose between the pressure washer and the hose reel stays nicely, tightly mounted to the wall, we went ahead and got some P-clamps. Also were able to find black screws and drywall anchors. This way we can keep that hose neatly tucked. So before we start drilling holes, it's gonna be important to make sure we know exactly where we want those holes, how far apart. Now, let's say that you're gonna use this hole and that hole. Well, that might be the ones that line up with your studs behind your walls or your exposed studs in your garage. On this one, we know that we have 16-inch about studs there. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure these outer holes, because I think they're pretty close to 16 inches, maybe a tiny bit off. In fact, we are at 15 3/8. So from the center of this hole to the center of this hole, 15 3/8 is exactly the distance that we want to have our lag bolts mounted in the wall, okay? So again, it could be different for you because you might be using 2 different holes in your wall to make sure they're lining up with your studs. Once again, if your garage does not have studs that align with these 4 holes, then what you're gonna wanna do is use some pieces of 2x4, okay? And you're gonna wanna mount 2. You're gonna wanna mount the pressure washer top holes to this one, and then you're gonna want a second one down below. This second one will keep the pressure washer from tilting down and not being sturdy against the wall. So you would mount these to the wall, drill them, drill the holes, make sure that you have the bolts in the 2x4. You're mounting the 2x4 to the wall, to your studs. Then you have the lag bolts sticking just out of this, maybe a 1/2 inch, again, so that you can lift the pressure washer up 1, 2, to make sure that your pressure washer is sturdy mounted to your wall that might not have any of these different options for stud widths. I just wanna make sure 15 3/8 is the number before I try to mount this sucker up on these lag bolts, and we are spot on. Okay, 15 3/8. Now, see these washers, when we pick this thing up and set it on here, these washers are gonna have to get sideways pitched to fit through the holes on the back of the pressure washer. So, how many people is that gonna take? It's gonna take at least 2. And I'm hoping that we can get it done right now with me and my buddy Mike. Right on.
There we go.
Let's see how straight you got her, Mike. Boom. Sorry, it's perfect. This thing is sturdy, super sturdy on the wall. Now we're gonna go ahead and hook it up, but what am I gonna do to hook it up? I'm gonna make absolutely sure that every little fitting has Teflon tape on it. I wanna make sure that anytime that there's water passing through any part of this pressure washer, that I've got Teflon tape on there to make sure that I don't have any leaks. So the good news about how this hose works is there's a hose clamp right here on the end of the fitting. If you have too much hose, all you have to do, unclamp this, cut the hose, and go to the right length. If you have to run a long hose and you have to go to like basically the store and you buy a long hose to run it from someplace far to your pressure washer, well great, you can do that as well and just make yourself as long of a hose as you need. So I found the best way to get this hose to be snug up against the wall was to come around the back and on the inside of this rear rail of the pressure washer cage. We're gonna come down like this and then up, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut about this much of the hose off.
Now, once your pressure washer is all set up and the intake hose is perfect length and ready to go, we want to mount the reel to the wall. And as you can see here, I have a backing support already mounted to this wall. we have 4 bolts here that are anchored to the studs behind the drywall here. And this is just a wood backing. And what we did is we lifted the reel, the Cox reel, up to this, marked off where we wanted it to sit, and then we drilled pilot holes. So once we get the reel up here, we can anchor it into this backing support. Now, why do you want a backing support for your reel? Well, you need something that's gonna support the weight of the steel braided pressure washer hose, and you also need to support the weight of the water inside the pressure washer hose. Also, you're gonna be using that hose a lot. You're gonna be pulling it out to start washing. You're gonna be cranking on the reel to get it to reel back up. So you need to anchor 2 studs in your wall to make sure that when you go to do that, it doesn't yank the reel off of the wall. And standard anchors for drywall aren't supportive enough for that reel. All right, so the reel is mounted. And now what we wanna do is we wanna make this look as clean as possible because we've already made the effort in getting the spigot in the inside, making sure the inlet hose is the perfect length. And so what I'm gonna do is take the hose that goes from the pressure washer to the reel, and I'm gonna connect it now. And then what I can do is sort of make a plan of how I want my hose to connect. And I think something like this, you know, kind of mounting the hose to go underneath the backing support and kind of connect over here to the pressure washer is gonna look the best. So we went to the hardware store and we grabbed these P-clamps, so we can just screw these straight into the wall and make it so we can clamp the hose down and make it look as clean as possible. Now make sure when you're putting these P-clamps in, you either go into the stud, but if you're not going into a stud, make sure you use drywall anchors because there will be a little bit of pressure against the hose with the P-clamp and you don't want those screws to pull out and it gets messy on your hose or even, you know, having holes in your walls. So now it's time to put the steel braided pressure washer hose onto the reel. So it actually uses the standard quick disconnect. So I'm just gonna hook this onto here. Make sure it clicks on and it's completely secure. And then with your Cox reel, there's gonna come another P-clamp that goes with the pressure washer hose to hold it in place on the actual reels. So we have the pressure washer hose connected and we secured the P-clamp here. And one thing I will say is there's small holes on the reel here. Now it'd be really easy to just put the P-clamp right where the pressure washer hose kind of comes out. But what we did is we went 1 hole down. So it's closer to the actual part where the hose is going to go onto the reel. So it's just a little bit cleaner start to when you start reeling up the hose. So before I start reeling this up though, I want to stretch my hose out all the way out as far as I can go. And then we'll come back, we'll reel it up, and then we'll pretty much be ready to start washing a car. All right, we're all set up. We got the hose on, we have the snub nose connected. Now what we need to do is turn everything on. We want to make sure that there's no leaks, there's no problems. And first thing before you turn everything on, especially the water, is make sure you do connect the snub nose because you want something to where it's not going to come shooting out the hose. Okay, so make sure to connect the snub nose first. And now what we can do is turn the water on. All right, and then we'll kick the pressure washer on. It's engaged, it's ready to go. And guess what? No leaks, okay? For the most part, when you get this setup, if you purchase this setup with the pressure washer and the Cox reel, you should not have any issues. Now, I know Adam mentioned it before, but make sure if there's any connections going together, they have plumber's tape on them. Now it's time to start washing the car. So, you know, again, we put the Cox reel here angled out so it has great access to pull the hose and the snub nose out straight into the driveway. The pressure washer is mounted off to the side in a really nice spot right above the spigot that was rerouted to the inside. We made sure we anchored our pressure washer to the studs that are inside the wall, and we made sure to use the support backing for the Cox reel. So listen, this is a total DIY setup that we did here today between myself, Adam, and Mike. But if you want to get this whole setup, but you don't want to do it yourself, this is a pretty easy job for either a builder or a kind of handyman kind of person. So if you have someone like that in your network, you can bring them in, get this whole thing set up, or you could find just a really highly rated handyman or builder in your area to help you get this set up. So I hope this video was helpful as far as getting your pressure washer mounted, getting your Cox reel mounted, having the best, lowest friction setup for washing that you can have. And if you have any questions around any of these products or any of this process, you can email us at tips@adamspolishes.com, or you can contact our customer service at 866-965-0400. Thank you for watching, and we hope that your washing experience and your washing setup is just as perfect as this one.